Let's get started. A video I'm looking forward to recording, and I'm pretty sure everyone watching the video is actually quite looking forward to this. We're reviewing the season. I decided let's bring Will back. We haven't had him on quite for a proper video in a long time. And I thought, why not now? Better late than ever. He teased it last time we had him on stream that we should sit down. Let's all talk about it. And for all of you that may not know Will, also known as MLS Moves, he covers the whole league. His channel will be linked in here. So getting that outsider's perspective of a guy that knows the whole scope of the realm of the Major League Soccers. This will be a podcast style video, and you guys do quite like it when me and Will chop it up. And just talk podcast style about the Sounders. And that's what we're going to be doing here today. We're going to go from start to finish, just kind of talking about the Sounders season. How do we rate it? The pros, the cons, a lot more on the negative, as you guys probably see on the title and what it's based around. But Will, how excited are you to talk about this?
Well, I don't know exactly if excited's the right word, but I am looking forward to it to have an honest conversation about the demise of the Sounders 2025 season. Talk a little bit about maybe what went wrong, some what went right, and talk about a path going forward.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I'm excited to talk about. I mean, let's first go start from the very start. And you were there with me at the very, very start. I mean, the place you have to start is the off season because that's kind of how the season starts. We saw the additions that the Sounders made, Ferreira, Ariola, later on bringing in Kent. We were not very bullish of the Sounders signings in the beginning of the season. And for the most part, I don't think the additions made a massive difference. I think Ferreira being the biggest shining light of all of them, but granted, Ferreira was the marquee signing during the off season, and we weren't quite bullish on him anyway. And even still now, I was kind of like, it was just kind of like a moving a pawn piece forward, getting a guy like Ferreira, in my opinion. It wasn't what the Sounders needed, and I'll kind of let you have the floor on that leading into the start of the season.
Yeah, they really had a MLS centric offseason. Now, Kent was signed, I think, a little bit later, like maybe April or May before the roster freeze date or until
because
the
of
summer.
because of Ariola's injury. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Um, yeah, they started off the offseason re-signing Albert Rusnak, which I was very much against for the deal that he got, right? Because he's a TAM level quality player who's making DP money, and he's just not a DP level player. I think a lot of the fans would agree with that. When you think of a DP, the mold, you think of a guy who can take the team where they need to go single handedly, kind of like what we saw with De La Vega when he's healthy, right? That type of impact player. That's what a DP is supposed to be. And I think Albert Rusnak is just a glorified TAM player, a good piece to the puzzle, but he can't be the biggest piece of the puzzle or one of the main three pieces of the puzzle. So that was an issue, right? Obviously, Jordan Morris was upgraded to a DP deal because of his goal incentive he hit in 2024. Another red flag, obviously not ideal for the Sounders. But then talking about new additions, right? And you hit on this, Jesus Ferreira. I want to say they traded Liao Chu, and then they traded, was it 1.5,
Gam?
2 million in GAM, I think, or something like
Yeah.
that? A shitload of GAM for him. And I think Jesus Ferreira never did shit for this team. Like, I think he was a huge disappointment. He was very lackluster in 2025. A lot of chances he's missed. He just is just such a shell of his former self when he was very good with Dallas. And you see that because he's 25 years old and nobody was even considering at having him in the USMNT conversation, which could only mean one thing because there is a player on the Sounders who is in the USMNT conversation. So obviously, it's not like they're just shunning the Sounders. It's about your quality and what you're performing, how you're performing with the team. But he was a huge disappointment. And then Paul Ariola, I mean, I would say he's a disappointment, but he really never got to play enough because he tore his ACL in like April, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe it was even March. It was very early in the season. So he never really got a chance to hit the ground running and make an impact. So their offseason was very underwhelming leading into the 2025 season. And their re-signings were pretty bad. So I didn't expect this team to win an MLS Cup just based off that, which we'll get in more into like the process as the season went on. But preseason predictions, I was low on this team because of everything we just mentioned.
Yeah, and I was in that same boat too with everything you talked about. It wasn't even just Jordan Morris going from non-DP to DP. Rusnak was TAM free agent, then got the DP deal as well. Sounders really hamstrung themselves, I think is a good word to put, with the signings they made, the re-signings they made. So like people like us, we weren't super like, oh, Sounders really made the right additions, because I think it's evident to people that are willing to be honest about the situation of the club. Where like they didn't make the right additions, they didn't take the right risks, but pretty much like the neutral consensus outside of that was like, okay, Sounders will still be Sounders. They'll still kind of be in that pot. But for us, and especially too the Sounders ownership, they were like, this is still an MLS Cup contending team. We can still go out and win it. This is a roster we are confident about. And I think that's kind of the letdown is you guys, we said all that. You guys made these additions to back your point, and that wasn't evident. And as you said, underwhelming offseason. And I think that's kind of how the start of the season went, was underwhelming, because you had like you had a okay start in CCC. You beat Antigua, whoop de doo. You played Cruz Azul. Obviously, it didn't help. Areola got hurt in that tie, but again, I don't ever hope for an injury from a player. But you have to think about too with Areola, it's similar to Jordan Morris. He's had an injury history. He's on the wrong side of 30. They're not the same players they used to be. If you're going to rely on those type of guys, that is the risk you are going to run. And then you get blown out by Cruz Azul. The start of the season, super up and down. And that underwhelming offseason bled into the start of that season. It started the season.
Yeah, and I think when you look at the 2024 season and how it ended against LAFC, or no, it ended against the LA it ended against LA Galaxy. They beat LAFC, right? I lost track of the 2024 season, but you just saw that like there's some deficiencies with this team that they needed to address, and they didn't do that. And that's why you kind of thought, well, then there's probably going to be some carryover, because here's the deal. The team was already so, I don't want to say old, but like, because some of these guys aren't old. Now, Stephen Fry is old because he's almost 40, but like they've been with the team for a very long time. I would say that they didn't have a lot of new blood. That's what
It's
I
like
would
almost like a
say.
new style, a fresh outlook, a fresh style of players, tactics, additions to the team. And I mean, the thing is too, we're talking about 2024 going into this season, the Sounders had the worst start they ever had in club history in 2024.
Yeah.
And like obviously they bounced, they turned things around, they bounced back and things like that. But the fact they didn't really like address that, in my opinion, is kind of what frustrated me a little bit. Was you guys saw some very clear deficiencies to start the season, all because you guys had a strong ending to it. Doesn't mean we should just put to the wayside that there isn't some deficiencies within this team. And you kind of just put some little band-aids over some of it a little bit. That's all you did.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like the team, the way it was constructed, they didn't have a lot of new blood. Like it's a lot of just old, like the same players that just keep running it back and running it back and running it back. Right. That's what it felt like. And now they did replace Nico Ladero with Pedro de la Vega, or at least the DP spot with him. Different players, but they try to get that pace and that creativity on the wing. Um, but then when you think about what they did this offseason, we touched on it. It was just very, very mid, like very, very mid. Like they put a band-aid, like you said, on a sinking ship with a fucking cannonball hole in the bottom of it. And it's like it just wasn't gonna do anything. Um and I think the biggest problem was too, and I don't know if Craig Weibel said this directly, but they heavily implied that guys, it's all right. We're playing in the Club World Cup. We got the entire summer to sign a player.
Yeah, you
Everything's
did.
fine.
Yeah.
Everything's good. We have plenty of time. No, we didn't sign anybody this winter, but we have the summer. And that's when people are ready to make business deals.
Yeah.
And we get to the Club World Cup. Actually, before it, there were rumors about, because we talked about that they struggled early in the 2025 season too. Like they did.
Yeah.
I think they were like, I want to say that they had a lot of draws. They didn't have a lot of losses. They had some. It was pretty even with their wins, but they had a lot of draws. Like they just weren't able to get 3 points in a lot of matches. But they just kept telling us, like, guys, just don't worry. Jesus Ferreira, Paul Arriola, these are just holdover moves. The summer's where things are going to really pick up. That's just what they kept saying. So we're like 2 weeks before the Club World Cup, and nothing is happening.
Because don't forget, they also had the special window too on top of the summer window as well.
They did, and also they got a. I want to say just for being a participant in the Club World Cup, you got a $10 million cash prize for just being a participant, which is pretty nice, right? Especially for a team that's looking for investors to spend on this team to help out. That's pretty good, right? You could buy someone pretty nice with that. If I'm not mistaken, I want to say that I want to, for some reason, I want to say no Ohio rumors didn't officially come out until after the Club World Cup.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
correct.
yeah. But they were just saying, like, kind of gaslighting the fans at that point in the Club World Cup right before, saying, well, we just want to be very methodical about who we sign. We don't want to make a bad signing. We don't want to overpay. We want to get the right scheme or the right fit profile for Brian's system, whatever the fuck that means. And we want to be able to make sure we hit on this. So then you're kind of like, okay, well, I think that's dumb because you've been scouting for months now. You should have been already talking to these teams about the player. You can't officially sign them until the window opens, but you could be doing business with them and getting negotiating with them.
This window's there. Like, this is your guys' jobs. You're supposed to research, make tactics, make plans. And exactly like what you said, you can already kind of have an idea of who you want to go for and have those negotiations with the player, with the club. Obviously, you can't put pen on paper until the window opens. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much then this is kind of like the next segment of this video is kind of an iffy start to the season. Then Club World Cup hits. Fans wanted to maybe see some interest, rumor, something during that special window. We even did countless videos talking about it, and nothing happened. Just the protests happened.
I do want to say this too. Someone told me that a good GM is always 18 months in advance. And what I mean by that is you're planning 18 months of a contract. Like if Jordan Morris's deal runs out in 2027, right? About 18 months from now, a little less than 18 months from now, they already know who's going to replace him or who they want to target to replace him. They're already got a list of guys of like, hey, we want this dude. We need to start making contact with him probably like 6 months to a year before that contract runs out.
That's what they did with Ladero.
Exactly.
They knew Ladero long before they signed him.
2015, 2014, something like that. I think they actually tried to sign him before.
Yeah,
I think they tried to sign him. I can't remember who the player was, but I think they tried to sign him before as well. But so that's just a preparation issue for Craig Weibel and maybe even Brian Schmetzer and anyone involved in the front office, right?
Yeah, the scout.
But I think, okay, Club World Cup comes up, right? You, me, everyone thinks they're going to get embarrassed. They're going to get smoked. They got the toughest group in the entire thing. They got to play Atletico, PSG, and Botafogo. Like, they have a very, very tough group, right? We thought if they scored a goal that was a huge dub. Like, that would be incredible, right? But they lose to Botafogo, I think 2-1. They had like 23 shots. And I think Christian Roldan was the only person who scored in that match, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, the header own goal. Yeah.
And then PSG, I think won, was it 4-0?
It was 2-0, 2-0.
2-0. And then I think Atletico was 3-1 or 3-0.
Yeah, 3-1. But that one was by far the worst of the three performances, in my opinion. That one was the one where if they finished way more of the chances they had, Sorloth had just an absolute sloppy bad match.
Yeah.
That game could have been a way bigger margin for sure.
Well, also too, another thing you have to consider, and look, I think it was a very admirable performance by the Sounders just because of everyone thinking they're going to get embarrassed. But you also have to put the context in if they're playing every single match at their home venue.
Yeah.
They're not having to travel. They're playing in front of probably a lot of their fans. And obviously there's going to be some traveling fans who want to see PSG or Atletico or Botafogo. But they know that stadium. They know that venue. They know that pitch. That they're playing on turf. Or maybe they were playing on grass, I think, actually, for that tournament.
They were.
But either way, they're playing at their home. They're not having to travel or live at a hotel. They're literally can go home after the match.
I mean, Botafogo and PSG, they only were in Seattle for like less than 24 hours. Like, they literally showed up night before the game, played the game, and then left.
Yeah. Um, and I just kept thinking at that time, like the Botafogo game more specifically, 23 shots and 1 goal. I mean, that's unheard of to have that. 23 shots and only have 1 goal out of
But
that.
do you notice how this is becoming a thing? You talked about how the start of the season, lots of draws, couldn't finish out games. The key game takeaway in Club World Cup, Botafogo couldn't get goals, and kind of you just see how the season concludes. But we'll keep going. I'm just like little teasers, little cookie crumble snippets that's gonna lead us to the end of everything.
Well, and so they lose, right, in the group stage, and they get the $10 million officially, the check sent from, the FIFA or whatever.
Infantino.
Yeah, Infantino sends them the check for 10 mil to the Rainy City. And they kept saying that we're scouting a striker. We're looking at a
We have
U22.
multiple, yeah, we have
We
multiple options in the
we
summer.
have
Yeah.
multiple options, and we like these guys. We're negotiating with the teams actively, and we're going to sign someone, right? U22 because they have no DP spots open, but you can get a good U22 player. Like that's still an impactful player you can get. Well, then Noah Ohio's name pops up, right? And I can't remember which Eredivisie club he plays for.
Utrecht.
Utrecht, that's right, Utrecht. And they say that they're talking to him. They're making progress on a fee with Utrecht. Like things are going the right direction. And then there's reports saying that he doesn't want to come to Major League Soccer. He wants to stay in Europe. Now, I want to touch on that just a second. A part of me thinks that maybe that's a deterrent for the Sounders front office to make it look like it was out of their control and that they couldn't sign him because he didn't want to come to MLS. I don't know if I believe that person. I mean, I'm not saying that it's impossible that that's the case, but I mean, it's Utrecht. It's like he's playing at, Benfica or he's playing at Manchester City or like some top end club. I mean, he's playing at Utrecht. He's playing at probably the fifth best Eredivisie club that there is. It's not like he's not even playing at Ajax or
Yeah.
Feyenoord or
Or
something
PSV.
or
Yeah.
PSV. So I feel like that was kind of like cleanup duty by the front office. That's just my theory on it to kind of save their ass to make it look like, yeah, we really identified this guy. He's very good. He was talented. We tried like hell to sign him, and he just didn't want to come to MLS. He didn't want to play for the Sounders. But even if that's true, let's play that that's true. Why didn't they have other options? Were all their eggs in this one basket? Like you have to have plan B, plan C, plan D.
But also to add on to your point, let's even say again what they say is true. Why would you go after a guy that has no interest in coming to the league anyway?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
It
Like,
doesn't make everything doesn't make sense here. Something's missing.
and when Utrecht and them agreed to a fee, which is what I heard,
Yeah.
allegedly that's what happened. Maybe that didn't even happen. I think that No Ohio would have been included and known the whole
Yeah.
entire time of what was going on,
But
and I think he would
apparently
have
he was
nipped
like,
it in the
"Nah."
bud. Yeah, and
Yeah.
he would have nipped it in the bud way sooner than like when it progressed. Because if I remember correctly, they were talking to No Ohio for weeks.
Mhm.
But prior to him, like that drama, that saga was like weeks in the making. Like it was like it almost felt like a month. And
Yeah.
then they don't sign him. And then they're just kind of like waving the white flag and saying, okay,
We
well,
get
actually, we couldn't sign him. He didn't want to come here. And there is no other option, guys. So sorry, we're going to roll with who we have.
And then, I mean, then that leads to the summer then happening, and then that's where we saw the best stretch from the Sounders, which is kind of new because Sounders usually have their worst patch during the summer. But post
Yeah.
Club World Cup, you talked about in numerous videos of people that watch Will's videos. He said Club World Cup was probably like, to paraphrase, like one of the best blessings in disguise for the Sounders because it put their butts in gear, it kicked their butts. And pretty much that's when the season started for Seattle. It almost felt like they went on their best form that they had ever been, and that bled into Leagues Cup. That's like the best we've seen the Sounders play.
Yeah. The Club World Cup was so hard that it just kind of made everything else seem so
Look easy.
easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, too, I think that them playing a majority of their games at home, again, like it was a very Seattle oriented summer for the team. Like they were in Seattle, it felt like probably 90% of the entire summer. Like they
Yep.
weren't traveling much, right? That helps. And they should have done as well as they did as far as just like comfortability, home field advantage and stuff like that. Because Lumen is a hard place to play at, especially if the fans are energized and they show up, which they did, right?
Yeah,
I remember
for both tournaments for the most part. Yeah.
I mean, our good friend Barry went to the final to watch
Yeah.
Inter Miami and Seattle play. When Seattle beat Cruz Azul like 7-0, I think was the first game. I mean, that was a statement win, right? And that's when you're kind of like, man, like they're playing really well. Like this might be the best team in Leagues Cup. And they just kept winning. They kept winning and they kept winning. I mean, they literally, I mean, you really you could have a draw and then you go to penalties and you get points that way, but they won every
And
single game. Like no penalty win shit. Like they won every single match in Leagues Cup. Every one. I think it was like 6 or 7 matches to win it all. Then you're kind of like, man, they are really, really good. Like they look like they could do something. But uh, one of the concerns I had for them, right, is I thought that Seattle didn't have a lot of good quality depth. Now, some people will probably push back and say, but Will, they have really good depth. They have guys that come in. I mean, Rothjob was starting in the League's Cup final and they won. And Rothjob's not a starting quality player. He shouldn't be, right? But they won with him starting. Yes, that's true. But I feel like when your core team gets very fatigued and tired because they had to play so many more extra matches compared to other clubs, like the 3 at the Club World Cup that no other MLS team had to play except Miami and LAFC. And then they also had to play what was it, 6 or 7 Leagues Cup games, which
yep.
Miami also had to play too. Miami is the only team that understands what they had to do with playing 3 Club World Cup games and then also having to play 7 Leagues
Playing
Cup
all the way to
games.
the final, yeah, in
Yes.
Leagues Cup.
Yeah, and then Miami also technically had to play a 4th Club World Cup game because they advanced out of their group stage.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
they played PSG, which is crazy. Um, so I thought that was where they really were going to make or break after that Leagues Cup. Like you win the trophy, you guys qualify for the Champions Cup in 2025, 2026, right? And what's this team's motivation going to be coming out of out of the Leagues Cup? Are they going to be like, okay, guys, we've done what we needed to do. Like we won Leagues Cup, we got a champion spot guaranteed, or are they going to like stick their head down and keep moving forward and try to do more? Like, are they going
Keep
to try to go for the MLS
riding that
Cup?
momentum.
Yeah, like
Yeah, and I think that's now what leads to the discussion because we saw in Leagues Cup, because I think we do have to talk about this, is we saw a different type of Sounders team. We saw a team where going into it, I was, skeptical going into Leagues Cup because we were starting a rotated team, and I was okay with that. We saw Thomas get his first real look into this season. Morris was injured again. Rusnak started the tournament, but then got injured during the tournament. Ryan Kent also got injured during the tournament, but this is not one of the guys I want to focus on. We saw Fry, Morris, and Rusnak, and 2 of these guys being the DPs, not contribute pretty much for the entirety of the tournament, and we saw the best soccer the Sounders played. I don't think this is being talked about enough. We saw Musovski, De Rosario, Thomas, the list goes on of players that they wanted it more. You saw a different version of the Sounders. We saw a great version of the Sounders we hadn't seen in a long time. De La Vega playing like a true DP during this tournament. Like everything felt so right. And then, like you talked about, now what do the Sounders do? Brian Schmetzer, you're in a conundrum. Morris is going to come back. Rusnak's going to come back. Do you keep riding the Thomas train or not? And it kind of, we saw a huge championship hangover from the Sounders after that, to lead on to the point you made, because now you have Morris back in the fold, even though Musovski's on a tear, De Rosario's on a tear, and Rusnak instantly gets his spot back as well. Fry instantly gets his start back as well. I don't know, just that whole thing rubbed me the wrong way because Musovski smashed Jordan Morris's best season that everyone was waxing lyrical about last year. No problem. Just average Joe striker just came in and blew him out the water.
yeah, and that's a good point too. Is like they showed they could win without their guys who are supposed to be the core players of their team, and that's like another I think another point in the favor of like how useless some of these guys are. They beat Inter Miami without Rusnak, without Jordan Morris, without Stephen Fry. I mean, I think that was
Two
impressive.
two of those guys are the highest paid players on the team we're talking about right now.
Yeah, so and maybe that's another thing too of like when those guys got reintegrated into the lineup, that's what kind of started their downfall. But I don't think they played bad after Leagues Cup. I think they had like they played like decently for a couple matches, and then they kind of hit a lull again, like where they weren't really playing very well. I just I I think this team put all their eggs in the Leagues Cup basket, and they just didn't have anything left to give down the stretch of the season. I mean, and we can talk about maybe like the stretches of like how things went down towards the end of the regular season, but one of my common things I've told you is the team were paying for past sins this down the stretch of the season. They played really bad at the beginning of the year, and that really cost them when at the end of the season when the playoff seeding where they didn't have home field advantage, which we saw through two different tournaments how important and how much better Seattle played when they did have that home field advantage. And I'd like to think that if Seattle did have the home field advantage over Minnesota United, this might have turned out differently. If they had to beat them twice at Seattle to advance, I think Seattle probably would have advanced.
I was gonna say too, I mean, when we interviewed fans during in the one of the matches post Leagues Cup against Vancouver, everyone was like, well, at that point, Seattle were pretty essentially eliminated from finishing top four. Like it was almost mathematically impossible. And fans were really bummed about it because they were like, well, we're kind of like shooting ourselves in the foot again because we haven't seen Seattle be one of the higher end teams in the playoffs. So they're always playing on the road. And fans were really bummed out about that, and I still do think Sounders did have a championship hangover because for the most part, I think our run post Leagues Cup, the games that we had were fairly easy for the most part. But Seattle were I honestly think post Leagues Cup, Seattle's form at the end of the season was similar to how they started the season. Obviously not exactly as bad, but it was to a similar vein. They couldn't close out games, they couldn't finish matches because you integrated other players. Like you added too many cooks in the kitchen, you could say. You had a recipe that was working, but then you have these other guys that you're just so loyal to that you're like, okay, well, I have to fit these guys back in the lineup. I can't just bench these guys. Like, and all this, but then it kind of it messed up your groove a bit. And so, yeah, them not getting a top four spot, which was easy to do, but Seattle kind of shot themselves in the foot, couldn't keep leads. I mean, they had a game against Colorado, they were up 3-0 and they tied it. They had countless games where I think they were playing Kansas City away, they were up 3-0. Knew who got the stupid red card, ended 3-2. And there's also a plethora of red cards, knew who's red cards in multiple games. And like Sounders got like 9 red cards this season, which is not talked about at all. And yeah, I
Well,
mean,
also too, I want to say that Seattle finished the season 3-2-2. Their final 7 matches, they finished with 3 wins, 2 draws, and 2 losses.
but look at who they were playing, though. There were some very easy games on the table.
And Miami got that revenge game 2 weeks later after uh after losing
Leagues Cup
to
final.
Seattle in the Leagues Cup final. Yeah, and if you look at it too, right? And a lot of people disagreed with this, saying that this wasn't an issue because I saw some comments, and maybe you can, when you're editing this, you can throw up that comment that someone had posted about the striker position, that it wasn't the issue. I do think that that's the biggest issue with the Sounders. They don't have a lethal striker, which is what they've always had when they've won MLS Cups. They've won 2 of them, and they've been to 4 of them. So every one they went to, they had a lethal striker, someone who could score. Uh,
Maybe not
be da-
2016, but your point still is
I
valid,
think I
though.
think Clint Dempsey wasn't bad. Like I think Clint Dempsey was
But
fine. I know he's
remember, but Dempsey got injured. He had the heart issue midway through 2016.
yeah, but I mean, leading up to it though, right? Leading up to it, like
Sure.
he was, and you know,
I mean, they
Jordan
had
Morris,
Nelson Valdez too. I mean, he
Nelson
was there, but
Valdez, yes, exactly. And then when they got Raul Ruiz Diaz, they literally went to uh
3 MLS Cup finals with him.
3 MLS Cup finals with him. So, and he was lethal. Raul Ruiz Diaz was very good. I think also too, just to like be a little bit more broad about it, right? The striker is a big deal. It is. They need a 9 bad, really bad. Jordan Morris isn't going to cut it. And Danny Musovski, as good as he is, he's a depth piece at best. He cannot be your
Yep.
starting striker. It just can't be. And neither can
He's
Dave
your
Rosario.
Kenny Coopers, your Chad Barrett type player, and they're useful to
Your
have.
Hey
But
Bear.
you're no, let's not talk about Ed Bear. He's not in this conversation.
Yeah, but he's supposed to be that guy that if someone gets hurt or needs a 20 minutes, needs to come off the field with 20 minutes left, that he can come on and he's not going to completely tank. He's supposed to be a super sub, right? They need that. Like I mentioned the Botafogo game, 23 shots, 1 goal. They need someone who can score at least, like, if you have 23 shots, you should at least score 3 or 4 goals. I mean, 23 shots is crazy. That's crazy. They just didn't have anybody who could finish. Like, there were so many times I watched the Sounders this year in the final third where their striker either whiffed the ball, didn't know when to shoot, made late decisions, or made bad passes. And they need someone who can just that has
The cutting edge,
the instincts of what to do. They need
yeah.
that striker instinct of like to be good and effective in the final third. They don't have that right now.
Because it
So
helps elevate the whole team, in my opinion.
it does. And the surface really wasn't bad. It was just who was up top. I think Danny Musovski was so efficient scoring goals this year because of the service he had, right?
He still had a lot of bad misses too. Like,
No,
don't like
he did. No, he did. But like they gave him the opportunities to still have a decent season. But I said broader outlook too, because I think they do need that playmaker, that X factor player, even if it's not a striker, like what Rusnak is supposed to be, what Pedro de la Vega was when he was healthy. They really need that really bad. Like who would you say? And this isn't a diss. And I know some people might get mad at me for saying this, and it's not. I'm not shitting on him because I think he's very good, and I think he should move to be better. But I think if Obed Vargas, a 19, 20-year-old player who's more of a holding midfielder, is considered to be your best player of the season, that's kind of an issue.
no,
That's
you're
kind
not
of an
wrong.
issue.
I completely agree.
Like that's an issue that the 19 or 20-year-old holding midfielder, or maybe Christian Roldan, who had a very good season. Christian Roldan deserves a lot of flowers. He had a very good season. That's why he's in the USMNT mix. If those are your two best players, something's going wrong. And it's not to say they can't be good, but it's like, what the hell is everyone else doing? Why are they the ones that are standing out above everyone else? So I'm curious, and maybe we'll talk about this in a second, or a little bit, in a couple minutes, about what they need to do going forward. But I think this year is more evident than ever that the Sounders really need to deconstruct and rebuild this thing.
There needs to be a big shakeup. I mean, the reason why like fans were okay, which I thought was crazy over the summer, like Sounders, 4 straight summer windows, no signings. It's already evident. We've talked about it. Craig Weibel's never made a signing during the summer transfer window. Fans, I think the Leagues Cup championship clouded that because fans were okay with, in the end, if Sounders didn't win Leagues Cup, I think more fans would have been upset with that and the fact that the no Ohio deal didn't happen. But because we won Leagues Cup, fans were okay with that.
Well, also too, let me say this real quick too. Every time the Sounders have been very good and went to an MLS Cup or won an MLS Cup, they make 3 to 4 big signings.
In the
And
summer, yeah.
even if it's within a year gap, right? In 2015, they signed Evenshitz, they signed Nelson Valdez, they signed Roman Torres, and then in 2016 they signed Nico Ladero. All 4 of those guys were part of that championship team in 2016 and 2017. In 2018, they signed Raul Ruidiaz. And then in 2019 or 2020, I think it was 2019, but it could have been 2020. They signed Yamar, João Paulo, and then they signed Ruidiaz the year before. They signed these big time players who are important pieces to the team in 3s or 4s, and they normally have that big jump, and that's when they really start to play better. They haven't done that in years.
I was going to add too. I mean, you look at all the teams that made big summer signings that are currently in the playoffs at the time of recording. You look at LAFC with Sun, how much their offense has completely changed because they made a cutthroat decision with Giroud. Look at Cincinnati. This is an underrated one no one talks about. Brenner, bringing him back. He's made a difference to the Cincinnati team. They already made great signings with Danke and Evander, but they're like, you know what? We want to go for the kill and get this MLS Cup. We're going to bring in Brenner as well.
Yeah, and New York City FC signed Nico Fernandez from Elche in Spain,
Yep.
and they spent like $9-10 million. He's already their best player. He scored He dominated against Charlotte FC
Yep.
in the first
Yeah.
round.
I mean, you know it better than me, but look at all the teams that advanced. They all made some sort of movement in the summer.
Every team, and I'm actually gonna do a video about this myself, talking about the playoffs, but every higher seed team advanced except one, which was Charlotte FC and New York City FC. That matchup. Every other team, every other higher seeded team advanced in the first round, and they all have difference makers. All of them spend money. Seattle is one of the bigger markets in the United States. It's bigger than Cincinnati. Cincinnati spent $30 million in players this past offseason. And look how much of a difference it made. You can't have great value DPs and expect to do anything. Like they're the most important pieces of your team. And by the way, real quick, I want to say this huge shout out to Andrew Thomas, one of the biggest winners of 2025. I think that he has ascended and he is got to be the goalkeeper going forward in 2026. I think Stephen Fry probably needs to hang it up. All respect to the man, bet one of the best players in Seattle Sounders history, one of the best goalkeepers in MLS history. I will always think about that 2016 save he had against the Toronto FC where Josie Altidore had the header and he reached out to save it. One of the best saves of all time. But it's time. He's almost 40 years old. Andrew Thomas can't keep rotting on the bench. He's ready. And
Like, what a dog he was. Dislocates his finger, still saves 2 penalties. Like, I know he missed his, but realistically, he put the Sounders in 2 opportunities to win the shootout. It shouldn't have came down to him anyway.
But
Like,
that's a good
what a
thing, though,
guy.
right? That you have a piece like that. Like, how many teams have to go look for their next goalkeeper? And you already have yours on the bench. Like, he's already ready to go. Like,
See,
he's
but the thing
there.
is like, if Sounders have passed, they would make this cutthroat decision. I just really hope we just get that ball rolling a little bit. Like, make some of these cutthroat decisions, start dropping the dead wood and bringing in fresh faces for this team because I think it's so needed. Like, and that's an easy one in my opinion. You don't even have to do anything. You just tell one guy bye, you say one guy hi. And that's something realistically Sounders could have done during the offseason with Rusnak. All you had to tell him was, "See you later."
Well,
That was it.
I want to talk about the offseason, but real
Yeah.
quick, I just want to touch on one more thing on the regular season. And then we can close it up and we'll talk about the future. But this was a very disappointing finish to the season.
Yes.
And I don't care that they won Leagues Cup as far as softening the blow to this horrible exit. Like, yes, it's a good thing you guys won the trophy, but you're supposed to try to win as many as you can. Losing the first round is so unsounders like. That's just not the Sounders I've grown to know. Like that's the
It's like
Sounders.
losing their touch a little bit
Yeah,
there, yeah.
exactly. It's just not that should never be like the Sounders are supposed to be a flagship team in MLS. They're supposed to be a competitive team every single year. And losing the first round is really bad. Like that's really bad. Um, in some leagues that gets you fired. Like the equivalency of what that, but it's not going to happen. Obviously, Brian Spencer's not going anywhere. That's fine. But that's that just saying that that's how bad it would be. That's how some teams handle that type of
Like, let's say if it
embarrassment.
was like a Real Madrid, like that
Oh,
type of
oh,
stature, yeah.
they lose if they probably fire their coach if they lost the final. You know, and that's the thing is, I don't think people realize this. They don't sit back and look because they just want to cling on to the 2022 CONCACAF Champions League win. The Sounders haven't won an MLS Cup since 2019. They haven't played in one since 2020, the COVID year, which was a weird season anyway. This team is getting further and further from the team
Yeah.
we
It's
knew.
digressing every year, I feel like, yeah.
Yes. So I think a rebuild, a complete rebuild is much needed. And I think that this is a disappointing finish to the season because it could have been better if there was some the team is just the team is not proactive.
I think the big issue I have with and I guess, yeah, let's close it out with talking about Minnesota because I've already erased it, I guess, from my brain because I tried to almost skip over it. But yeah, League Cup was fantastic. And it was not the thing is too, I don't like that people think there's like a narrative. We don't want to see the Sounders succeed, this and that. One of the best stretches on the page we had was during Leagues Cup. Like I tell
Yeah.
Will about it all the time. It was the biggest boom we had on the channel. I want the Sounders to have successful moments like that. And I think it was fantastic. But the problem is it's almost like on a one-off game, I have a lot of faith in the Sounders to do something, but we saw a different side of the Sounders because they did some of the stuff in a sense that I've wanted the team to do is like, give other players a chance, look for something fresh, drop some of the dead wood. It wasn't because we dropped them. Well, they just weren't able to play, but we saw a new brand of the Sounders when there was change that was made. And then going into these playoffs, regardless of it even being the first round, it was Minnesota. Talk about 2020? Even when Sounders were down 2-0 in the 70th, 60th minute against Minnesota in the conference final, no one thought we could not come back in that game because Minnesota was always a bogey team for us. Like, I don't want to say Minnesota was a laughing stock, but it's like we didn't have to take them that seriously because we were still confident because we're the Sounders. And you lost in the first round to them.
Well, I just want to say too that we talk about like last year. I was very harsh on the Sounders, and everyone would be like, "Will, why are you being so hard on them? They made it to the Western Conference Final. They performed very well. You're so negative." And I always say this: the Sounders have not won decisively in the MLS context. Takes Leagues Cup out, okay? They don't win decisively in tournaments in MLS. They haven't done that in a while. We saw they win marginally, right? We saw the opposite end of that. Last year, they beat Houston on penalties, both
Yeah, it was
games,
the
and it went
flip.
in their favor. Now we see how easily it can flip the other way. Like it's like when you're winning like that, it's not guaranteed that you're going to advance or that you're going to make it all the way through. So you get a peek behind the curtain and kind of see like what if, like what would it look like if things went the other way? That's what it is. And that's because you don't have those big time players who can take the team on their back like you've had in years past, like Robert Diaz, Nico Ladero, all these type of players. That guy doesn't exist on this team, right? So I really hope that with this new ownership rumor, like trying to get someone to buy a stake in the team to trying to give some more money to the club, that is a new direction the team goes in. That they know, like, hey, we can't win like this. We got to spend money, or we're going to get left behind. And I think that this is the most important Sounders offseason that there has been, maybe ever. And some people think that's crazy to say, but I really do. This is a crossroads. What is the team going to be? Are they going to continue to be that club that just it can go either way every season, and maybe they have one run where they're lucky enough to make it to the conference final, but they're not good enough to win? Or are they going to invest in the team and be the premier club of the Western Conference again, that's constantly in the Western Conference finals, that's being in an MLS Cup 4 or 5 years? Like, that's what I'm curious to see if that's what they're going to do. I mean, they made it to 4 MLS Cups in 5 years. And that's what they should be trying to chase again. That's what they should be trying to go for again. I just don't know if those days are long gone or not. We're going to find out. Like this, and I hope all the Sounder fans know this. This is the most important offseason in Seattle Sounder history. And we'll see if they're able to, if they're going to buy anybody out, they're going to trade anybody. Are they going to try to get, move Jordan Morris off the books or try to get rid of Albert Rusnak? And some people are going to say, oh, well, you're crazy. I'm telling you, if this is their 3 DPs again in 2025 or 2026, they're not going anywhere. They have probably the 3 worst DPs in the league.
I think the Sounders in this roster is kind of like, I don't want to say ticking time bomb, but it's like, at what point does this give? Because they haven't made the investments or the change, the rebuild that this team is long overdue to have. And I actually don't disagree with you here. This is the most important offseason in Sounders history, not in regards to just additions, but ingoing, outgoing transfers. There needs to be some serious cutthroat decisions because Weibel, the ownership, can't keep waffling and being like, oh, well, this is a championship team. I don't want to mess it up like this and that. I was like, dude, CCL is now going to be running 4 years ago. That's 4 years removed. The team is 4 years old. That's a World Cup cycle we're talking about here.
Yeah, and also too, this is called the direction offseason. Tell us where they're going to go.
Yeah.
And I want everybody to know that all the Sounder fans, tell yourself this: most important offseason in the history of the club. And some people, maybe even other channels, are going to laugh at that and say it's clown stuff and it's not true. All the true fans know this is a pivotal moment in the club's history of where they want to be. Because if they run it back with the same team, MLS is just getting harder and harder each season. It's going to be, I mean, running back this exact team next year, the results might even get worse.
It's evident in the attendance numbers too. I mean, outside of the Leagues Cup run and Club World Cup, Sounders attendance just keeps dropping. There's nothing fun. The thing that brings fans puts butts in the seats. I mean, season ticket members have just been dropping. And
Yeah.
so it's evident in that. And it's like normally prior to 2020, I would disagree with you being like Sounders don't need to buy big players. This is not their DNA. They don't need to do that. They have their own system of doing things. And that is why they were the most successful team at MLS in the last decade. But the league has it's leaped leaps and bounds these last couple years. And I feel like now Sounders need to adapt or die because now we're really seeing the difference. We're seeing teams like Minnesota looking like solid clubs. Look at San Diego. Look at LAFC. Look at Charlotte. Look at NYCFC. The list goes on. These teams have premier rosters, premier players. And the thing is, too, it's like even back then, it's not like Sounders didn't have Premier League players. It's like they didn't spend like huge money to a degree like we see with like the Miami's LAFCs, but they still spent good money and they still brought in Premier League players. But now they don't even do that.
Yeah. And that's the thing is like, they used to be a very ambitious club. I don't care what anyone says. I've seen it. I saw what they spent. I saw when they spent it at the time of the league, like at the point of where the league was. And that team is just far gone. So the fans need to put the pressure on them. First round exit. Everyone's seat should be hot right now. Like, I'm not saying that they should fire anyone. Maybe Craig Weibel, maybe, but like, I think there should be pressure. Like, that's unacceptable. First, I just think that when you set a standard that you're making the MLS Cup final 4 out of 5 times in a 5-year period, and you haven't been to one in 5 years, that's not good. And I feel like that's kind of like there's a bigger question lingering around of like is it more than just the players? Is it the leadership? Is it the front office? Is it Brian? Um, Because even good managers can lose their way in the locker room. Sometimes their message just kind of gets dry and no one really cares or buys into it and they're checked out. I would give him one more season at least and try
Well, he
to
only has one more year left on his deal. Yeah.
I wouldn't extend him. I would not
Yeah.
extend him. I would give him one season and I would revitalize this team, revamp it, try to get some new blood in here
Give him new pieces to work
and
with, see if
see what
that works.
happens. See what happens. But I'm telling you right now, and I'm looking at the camera right now. Hopefully, I'm looking at you guys straight in the eyes. If the Sounders have 3 DPs of De La Vega, Jordan Morris, and Rusnak, they are in big trouble in 2026. They have to buy one out or trade one. Rusnak, you could probably would be the easiest to trade because his salary's so low. It's only like $2 million a year. He would have to be a DP on another team, but I think you could trade him. Nobody's going to take Jordan Morris. So the only option with Jordan Morris is you'd have to buy him out. And I don't think they're going to do that because they'd have to spend like $6 or $7 million to buy out the remainder of his contract. But they're going to have to offload Rusnak, and they're probably going to have to offload De La Vega too. Probably they'll probably have to end up maybe trying to sell him and open up 2 DP spots to really get this thing in another back to where it used to be. So we'll see what happens. Long off season. It's November. They're not playing again until February, which is kind of crazy to think about. It's a long ass off season. We'll see what happens.
Boys and girls, mine and Will's opinion only matters so much. Let us know your guys' thoughts in the comments down below. What did you guys think about everything we talked about? Do you agree, disagree? What would you change? What would you think the Sounders should implement? What were the positives, negatives from the season? And guys, we're on the road to 2,000 subscribers. We are very close to that. So with your guys' help during the off season, we can reach that. Plenty more fun videos along the way. Make sure to go check out Will's channel. It's going to be linked in the title description. Go check him out if you guys want to watch all things MLS. I mean, like he said, he has a lot of good stuff planned during the offseason. He's still covering the playoffs. So if you guys want to follow other teams and see what other crazy players go off in this MLS Cup playoffs, you can go check out his channel. I get it if you're still bitter and want to see Minnesota lose, that's fine. Then it is what it is. But yeah, boys and girls, I hope you'll have a lovely day.